So please tell me more about Ration and what you're doing.
Sure. Yeah. So Ration is a brand that's part of a house of brands called Blue Box Brands. Blue Box Brands is a curator and creator of brands. So Ration was the first one. We wanted to make Ration the first piece that we brought to market because philanthropy is actually really important to what we do here. We have a number of causes that we give back to at a micro and macro level. Macro, we work with a couple of organizations down in DC on making sure that we're paying attention to where policy sits and where veterans have access or don't have access, or maybe there's an education hole. On the micro, we give back to tighter organizations, more localized, one of them being Swim with a Mission. It's a great group. They work with the Navy SEAL Foundation out of Florida. We throw or co-throw an event every year. It was our second year this past July, where you have a paintball tournament and every team gets a Navy SEAL and you go through the whole tournament with them. So it's a cool immersive experience, and then we're able to give back dollars to things like helping people lower their cabinets or get money towards their billing codes or direct help and counseling.
That's awesome. As a former Navy guy, just go Navy.
There you go.
Awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, so whether Ration's helping on the philanthropy side or Blue Box is helping, a brand that's adjacent to its own portfolio, we're really about commercializing brands and preparing them for scale. So we have a good relationship with our sister company, BeGreen Supply, that helps provide packaging and hardware all the same, and that's what brings us together with Vape-Jet.
So Ration does a lot of outreach and advocacy and, a lot of philanthropy. Can you tell me more about that, and how did you get started down that route, and why did you select veterans organizations?
Sure. So veteran service organizations do a lot, and I'm never going to suggest that we could do their job better. So it was really important to me to find and vet good VSOs, veteran service organizations, at the core so that we could accomplish what we'd like to from a for-profit business perspective. Mm-hmm. So ways that we like to work with these different VSOs varies depending on the scale of that organization. So our favorite component is really getting to find out what these people need. And, before starting Ration, we spent about the first year down in DC talking to different groups and finding out which group was going to make sense to partner with, who was not going to be afraid of cannabis, who was going to speak up about cannabis in their lobby sessions, in their peer groups. And we found some really fantastic people through that process, whether they be individuals or organizations. And from that first year, it's been a great learning experience to expand upon our knowledge base and what veterans really need. On top of that process in looking for these individuals and organizations, we identified that these people really need true support. And much like our business in providing support to individuals, that may define different support mechanisms, whether that's getting them involved with therapy, plus medication, plus alternative medication, right? And a really important story to me is both of my parents are military veterans inside the Air Force community. My father back in the day, he caught a piece of munition off of a plane that was very, very large and messed his back up. He's been very successful since then, but just a couple of years ago, his injuries started to flare up again. And very, very recently, in the last year, he was prescribed a number of opiates and a nerve suppressant. And I got a call from a close family member, and she said, "What can we do to get your dad off of these things?" And this family member is in the clinical community. It was very odd to get that call. because they're the expert. So, just sharing any bit of exposure that we've had in this space to help him get through that. Within 2 weeks, he was off of the entire opiate program.
That's amazing to hear.
Yeah, he kept the nerve suppressant, but he was off the opiates. And now he's, in his choice, he doesn't continue to use cannabis, but it got him through that moment. And now he's clear of everything.
That is really good to hear. Happy to hear that.
Yeah, thank you. So small success stories like that yield great results. And I want to see that continued in that community.
Absolutely. 100% agree with you there.
Yeah, thank you.
Can you tell me more about how you found out about Vape-Jet and how that's been going for you?
Sure. So I found out about Vape-Jet by walking the floor at MJ BizCon a few years ago. But it was totally by chance, and we were super happy to find a great team and you leading that team from a technology aspect. I have a background in medical device and in FDA compliance and pushing things forward to the next level, which is why I wanted to build a device company before getting into brands. But I was like, this guy gets it. So
I was about to say, I think I remember because we didn't have a booth that year, but we ended up chatting.
Right.
And I believe you and Devin started chatting heavily on the medical device and all the insanity of bringing devices through marketing and FDA approval and everything else. I remember that a few years ago. That was a great meeting.
That was fun because the origins of why we started in the cannabis space really followed that track. We were a couple of my friends and I that started this thing. We wanted to get away from how long it took to bring products to market in the medical device industry. I remember telling you a moment ago, the last project I worked on back maybe 2015, 16 just got to phase 3 clinical trials last year. So now we're on to kind of a faster paced industry. It's volatile, but it's a lot of fun. And there's a ton of opportunity to help people and brands.
Yeah. So can you tell me more about what Vape-Jet devices you use and how you're using them?
Sure. So my interaction with Vape-Jet is from 2 different lenses, whether that's direct through Ration and some of the other brands that we have in-house, or some of the customers that we support from BeGreen Supply. So, I was truly attracted to Vape-Jet, from our origin story, but also with the fact that, I found real success in my customers' stories back in on the BeGreen front. Whether that's supporting MSOs or direct brands like Ration. It's a really versatile system, whether we're talking about an individual filler, such as the fueler, or the Vape-Jet that's a little bit more comprehensive for the bigger user, being that maybe MSO or super high throughput brand in a single state. So from my perspective, I love being able to recommend a myriad of systems, and Vape-Jet's always number one at the top. And it also has a great capping solution, which is pretty rare to find systems that are designed to work together rather than 1 + 2. And sometimes they don't talk well. But internally, I love setting up my partners for our own brands with mostly this in mind. We go in from a manufacturing assessment standpoint and we suggest, okay, what's the real capacity of this place and what do we want to get them to? So helping that team understand the bridge in their labor, their infrastructure, their facility, and a lot of things that tie into that. We typically like to start groups with a fueler and then graduate them to a Vape-Jet. And our multi-state approach is really aimed at facilitating that conversation through Vape-Jet. So we're taking Blue Box brands as a portfolio and going to all these different states, and we're requiring Vape-Jet to be part of that protocol.
So what kind of devices have you been filling and are filling today?
Sure. I'd say from the BeGreen front, most of our customers are filling cartridges. 510 still remains a pretty strong player in the world of vaporizers. But we have seen an increase in disposables at a national level, kind of more pocketed in the super city regions as a major spike. Beyond that, though, we've got some things that are being built internally as well. One of my favorite things about Vape-Jet is that, from an executive level for myself, I can pick up the phone and call Vape-Jet and they can log into a machine. That is like such an incredible benefit that I've enjoyed over the last few years, whether it's for machines that are under our control or even for a customer on the BeGreen side. Being able to troubleshoot with a customer and our hardware versus our own brand and our own hardware is invaluable.
Thank you. Yeah. And I would say on that note, not a lot of people know this, but the Vape-Jet organizational structure is all built around that from the very beginning. Every single one of our departments, it doesn't matter who they are, sales reports to our support department. Manufacturing reports to our support department. Everything is focused around support, because I found that with any device you build, any piece of automation equipment, any piece of equipment that has moving parts and some that don't, something is going to break. And the business processes you build around that are incredibly important. So
absolutely. Service is king.
I'm glad to hear that has been the experience, because that is really what we're trying to put forward.
Definitely. Service is king. Learned that through manufacturing a long time ago, whether it was setting up a big factory or working with a mom and pop. It's all based on service.